Hey, what's up, fam? This is PT, and welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I have my co-hosts right along with me. You want to tell them who you are?
Hi, my name is Daniel Gilmore. I'm happy to be here, and I can't wait to really unpack just everything we're going to talk about over. How many episodes are we going to do?
I'm thinking we're gonna do about 4 just to kick it off. Start with 4, see where we go from there.
But yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to get started.
And we've been talking about this for a minute. For those of you that may not know, I'm Daniel's dad. So there you go. I hope you can see the resemblance because we look a lot alike, but just thought I'd say that. But we've been talking about this for a minute because we really feel like, the things that God has allowed us to go through and experience, there are things that other people can learn from. And he's done an amazing work in my life and my son Daniel's life. And so we were like, hey, let's just take a few episodes on a podcast to share those things, what we've learned, and be a source of encouragement and redemption for somebody else. So that's the heart behind this. And today we get to kick this thing off right because we are going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to both of our hearts concerning my twin grandsons and just everything surrounding their entrance into the world, how it impacted Daniel. And so buckle your seats and get ready. Today, we're going to start this thing off on 10. So, my twin grandsons, Aiden and Jaden, are such a gift to this world, and man, to my life, just being a grandfather is just gold. But Daniel, our path here was a little different than you expected. And so just kind of talk about that for a minute and just tell us how we got here and the things that led up to this moment.
Yeah. So I remember the first time that I called you, and I was like, I can't even remember exactly how I brought it up. All I can remember is your first reaction. That's what stuck with me. I think I had went in autopilot and telling you because I was so worried about the reaction that you had.
Mm.
But overall, it was I met my now wife in college. We dated for about 2.5 years before we had children, and it was we met. We were Christians. As you know, I'm a PK. She grew up in church as well, so we were both equally yoked, and we had guardrails.
Mm.
It was you can't stay in my house past this time. You can't be here without somebody else being here, and people always say it's a drift, and there's you kind of get lulled to sleep, and that's
Mm.
exactly what happened. One day, uh, she needed to study and pull an all nighter. I said, "Hey, might as well just pull the all nighter here."
Yeah.
And from there, we just got lulled to sleep. And I want to say, ironically, you found out on Easter.
Wow.
Um, it was either Easter or Mother's Day. It was a very ironic day. That's what I
Oh, okay.
because we were on our way to church, and she was not feeling good, and we went to Walmart to get her test.
Hmm.
And I remember like my heart was beating fast, but I'm kind of naturally optimistic.
Yeah.
So I was like, she's just not feeling well. And I'll never forget this. She came out of the bathroom just like bawling.
Mm.
My heart just sunk.
Wow.
And she was like, I took 2 tests and it's positive.
Wow.
And ironically, we were on our way to church. So
That's,
uh,
that's
I
something
had to,
right there.
yes, I had to go through the whole service, smile on my face. She had a smile on her face, but deep down inside, we were both freaking out. But that goes to when I called you. I'll never forget. I think I told mom first, and I told you last because I knew that's something that we had talked about
Yeah.
throughout just growing up, is how you didn't want that for me. And, you know, it was just something that I called myself, prided myself in avoiding.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember telling you, like, I didn't think that it could happen to me because I felt called.
I remember that. I was sitting there when you told me that. I was like, huh? Because for real, I'm sitting there and I'm on the other end of the line, and I'm taking it all in. But that statement, well, I didn't think it could happen to me because I'm called. And in my head, I'm like, we talked about the birds and the bees, so the potential is there. But go ahead, finish your
No,
thought.
no, and looking back, that was a very, very, um, I wouldn't say crazy. It was a very naive thing to say.
Mm,
I really thought that I was bulletproof
yeah,
because I I knew I was called, and I had a word speaking over me at a young age.
yeah.
And from that age, that's why I kind of sympathize with Joseph a lot, is
Mm.
because I felt like that, and I didn't think that bad things could happen to me. Kind of just like he didn't think that surely his brothers would throw him in a pit. So
Man, if I could put a bookmark right there, and that's a powerful statement that you made. That you made an assumption based on the call in your life. That even though you may have been doing something that you know you shouldn't have been doing, that you would be protected. And it's a great reminder, honestly, to all of us that we live under the umbrella, the covering of God, but when we decide to step outside of that, that covering kind of diminishes a little bit and he removes his hand. But, thank God for his grace, even in all of that. And so, man, just go ahead, continue with where you were going.
oh man, just to piggyback off that, it's so much grace. It really was the beginning of what I felt like was a spiral.
Mm,
Um, because I knew, God's grace kind of. I felt like I feel like I have a unique perspective where I felt God's grace allowed that to happen to kind of show me that His grace was a thing. I
yeah,
was floating off of it and unaware of it,
that's good.
but um, being confronted with my own actions,
Yeah.
and that will really make you become face to face with God's grace.
And man, that's such a powerful statement, and to have that experience early is such a gift. In that you learn that, man, I can't take advantage or take for granted His grace, and for Him, your statement was true. I mean, it was like His grace to show you that, hey, my grace is sufficient, and it's unlimited, but the grace that allows consequences is still grace.
Yeah.
And man, I'm thinking about that day you called me, and yeah, trying to find the words to say, but I was stunned, and I was disappointed. And in the coming episodes we'll talk about areas of my life that had reflected this in some shape, form, or fashion, but I just didn't want it for you. And
Yeah.
as a pastor, I just wanted you to live your life in a manner that I didn't get to because of choices that I made. But I'll never forget this revelation that God gave me, and He gave me to give it to you all when you were younger. Is that I never want you to feel like you have to live up to my call. I never wanted you to feel like you had to be perfect. You had to, living in this glass house, you always had to do the right thing. And the funny thing was, I believed that with all my heart, but that moment tested it. That moment tested that thought and that theory. And I had to step back from disappointment and all of the stuff that I felt and recognize, man, I need to show him love. Like, this is not the moment to beat you up or to browbeat you or make you feel bad about this. I felt like you felt bad enough. And I'll tell you, for those listening, I think that Daniel, you struggled with such shame from this
Yeah.
early on that I think that was a part of what led to your spiral. And as I begin to see how much shame you struggle with, it was even more of a man, I got to jump in with a life raft and pull him out, and beating him over the head isn't going to pull him out. And so I remember making that choice that it's like, all right, we're here. We're
Yeah.
here. They're coming. And it's not one, it's two. And, and we're going to walk this thing out. And I know, because I know personally God can redeem a story. So I knew he was going to redeem your story. But talk about, because here's the deal, you're a pastor's kid. So you've grown up not only around ministry, you've grown up doing ministry.
Yeah.
You've grown up with people seeing you not only as my son, but as a person who is very active. You've preached before. You've done all these different things. When you talk about the spiral, what number one, this twofold. What led to the spiral, and what brought you out of the spiral?
So first, I do want to preface by saying that I am very grateful to have the parents that I have. Both of them being a pastor and a minister. I grew up in church, grandparents, pastor, cousins, pastor. So it's really throughout it's not even, I wouldn't even call it a legacy. It's the family tree of pastors. But I was very grateful to have the parents that I had, because I didn't feel the weight of being a pastor's kid, how some PKs feel. I was never coerced into doing something. They didn't make me open my Bible. They did guide me, but overall, you all never made me pray. You never made me worship. I remember the biggest moment in my life was when you were a youth pastor and you invited me. I was maybe a couple years younger than everybody else. I want to say I was 11 and everybody else was like 13, 14.
Oh, yeah,
Battle cry.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually where I got saved. But it was good because my dad didn't say two words to me. Even when I did the altar call, I wasn't near him.
Yeah.
But you provided a space for me to, simply just be transformed by God.
That's good.
So, even like my mom, she just sat down and I knew the Lord's Prayer by, I want to say 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
So, it Christ and reading was comfortable to me.
Yeah.
So my spiral happened, I believe, because I believe that through those experiences, simply I knew better. I didn't have the cliche, he's young, he makes silly mistakes. In the process of people saying I was called, they also said I was mature for my age, both just emotionally and mentally, but also spiritually. So I knew exactly what would happen. I just knew that I just didn't think it would happen to me.
That's a good statement.
Yeah. So the spiral happened when I think it was a lot of shame because God really opened up the hood. I was being covered by grace in a lot of areas that I didn't even realize. Kind of flow no grace, if you will.
Yeah.
In doing offering teachings, I was grateful you allowed me to do offering teachings. And I had preached before. I had my own ministry in college. And I really realized that even throughout everything that I was doing that was good, there was also an undercurrent of being lulled to sleep, even before I met my now wife. So the spiral really came from knowing better, as well as there was one just quote that really hit me, just pierced me, was somebody was like, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they said, he did that. I thought he was better than that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I kept hearing that and it repeated over and over and over in my head.
Wow. Those are the ones though right there, because
Yeah.
it's like it's great to have a great reputation until the reputation is tarnished. And then
Yeah.
everybody's like, what? Him?
Yeah.
Oh, not him. And they almost think people are lying because they're like, no, not Daniel. Daniel
Yeah.
wouldn't do something like that. But I love how you explained it, because I believe that at any point in our walk, whether you're in college, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, 60s, whenever you stop doing the things that are consistent with spiritual fitness, for spiritual health, you open yourself up. And as when you went off to college, I knew it was going to be a battle. I did. I just, as a dad, you see the train coming, and I just tried to prepare you as best I could, but I also wanted you to not be legalistic. And there's this balance in parenting where you want your kids, you want to guide them in the way that's right, but not be domineering.
Yeah.
And I don't know if me and your mom ever perfected that. All I can say is that the fruit that I see now makes me know that the seeds that we planted, we did some good.
Yeah.
And when I think about the spiral that you walked through, it was a couple of years. Like,
Yeah.
this wasn't just,
Yeah.
hey, the boys are born, it's over. It was a couple of years. What did that feel like?
It I really felt like my life was over. I did.
Mm,
I was like, so, because one, I was feeling horrible, and I kind of ironically was mad at God,
wow.
because I was like, all right, yes, I made the mistake, but two, like, what did what
Right.
did I do? Am I getting two because I knew better? Like, yeah. So it was that on top of I had just I think I've always framed this to people as if I said college wasn't for me, but truly at the same time we found out that the kids were existing and Jessica was pregnant, I flunked out of college.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of things all at once, and even the flunking out of college, to me that was God's grace, and we'll
Mm,
talk about that in a later episode and where I am on that journey. But
yeah.
it was everything hitting at once. I had to go to a job that I did not want to do because I had to
Yeah.
provide, um, all with the weight of the call still being on me. Like, and I think that's what made it worse.
Mm,
It was good that I had that confirmation,
yeah.
and I actually got it on video, so I would go back and look at it. But it also became in that season a weapon because I would sling it at Jessica. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
I kind of pushed her away because I blamed her.
yeah.
There was a lot wrong, and I think it lasted what 2-3 years
Yeah,
of
it was
this.
a couple of years.
It was 2-3 years. But the huge turning point for me um, was when I stayed with you all for about 4 or 5 months, or 3 to 4
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Before I start talking about that, what was that time like for you when I came to stay with
For me, it was number one, I was happy that I had an environment that you could come back and stay with me. Like that, even though you were in your 20s, you didn't feel like you had to go stay with a friend or go anywhere else, but that you could come home and be here. And so that was great. And I got to be honest with you, having you here every day was a joy.
you? Yeah,
Uh, it was just like being able to talk to you about ministry stuff, and then watching you for 2 years or so flounder, just kind of trying to
yeah,
find yourself. It was so good to have you close, because you were in Kansas City. I mean, you were in
hmm,
Warrensburg, you were in Kansas City, and so we would talk, but we just couldn't be in each other's presence.
yeah,
And so for those 3-4 months, every day we were together. And I remember I was taking you on ministry trips with me
Yeah,
so you could get, and all of that was intentional. All of
yeah,
that, I loved having you with me, but I wanted you to just see what it looked like, the experiences. But it was a joy. And the day you came to me and was like, I gotta go back.
yeah,
For me, that was just powerful because it showed me the maturity that you had. You like, I got to get back to my boys. I got to get back to taking care of my family. And it was a great reset. It
yeah,
was a great time where I watched you get up and get back into the word and get back into the area. And I just think it was definitely unconventional, you
yeah,
being able to come back to live with us. But I think it was like a launching point
yeah,
for you, and hearing you talk about it
yeah,
made me even that much more excited because I know what I felt, but to
yeah.
hear what you felt, I was like, oh well, dang, okay, now you were doing some stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was great for me. I loved having you here.
I remember I started reading. I've always loved his library. His Your library is so extensive. I've stolen so many books from you that you've actually gotten back, and I still haven't given them back to you.
Yeah, I
But it
know,
was
but
one in
I'll let that
particular
go.
by Miles Monroe about vision. And at the
Mm,
time, I really was lost, and reading that book while also being able to meditate
yeah.
was huge. But I remember when we went to Kentucky.
uh
Um, so I had, been studying, reading, meditating, and all that stuff. But it was when we went to Kentucky, and I don't know how I did it, but I ended up praying for somebody. And
yeah.
immediately there was like, it was second nature.
Mm,
And even in that, I was able to give them a word, which I hadn't been able to do for a couple of years.
wow.
So that it did two things for me. One, it showed me that God was still with me,
Yeah, yeah.
and He always was. He never left. But two, it reminded me that I still had the ability, which I needed to be reminded of, to do what the Lord put me here to do.
That's good. Man, I didn't even know that. I remember seeing you pray for the person. I remember the word that you gave him, but I didn't know that it had that kind of an impact
Yeah,
on you. And so that's powerful. And Daniel, when I watch you with your boys, the the love that you have for them, the love that they have for you, and just watching you mature in this, it's like the version of you that exists today
yeah,
had to go through that.
yeah,
Like you had to go through that to see your humanity, to see God's grace, because now your perspective is different. And then
yeah,
you're a great dad. I hear the boys in the background
yeah.
right now. They're probably trying to beat the door down to get to
Yes,
you.
yes,
But it's just a powerful story of God's redemption, and the you and Jessica eventually got married,
yeah,
and now you've got our third the
yes.
grandson on the way, and so just for a moment, talk about like when you were able to recover, when you were able to get back to this place of seeking God, what were some of the things that you now wanted to do? What were some of those things?
So I think the first thing was in the I keep referring back to this, but it just kind of showed what it meant for me at the time. The prophecy that I got. One of the things was an organization that I was supposed to create,
Hmm.
and I during that 2-3 years just stem of time, I lost all vision for it,
Wow.
and it wasn't. I thought that was kind of what contributed to my. I felt like my life being over,
Hmm.
because I felt like it was this huge thing that before I had such momentum on. And I think that was the most deflating part because I'll never forget this. I was doing an email like newsletter at the time,
Yeah,
and you told me to stop. You remember that?
I do remember that. I
And
do.
I was heartbroken. Um, And that was kind of where the well kind of turned off for that time.
Yeah.
And I probably have to seek that out on why I was still getting inspiration.
Yeah.
But probably the epitome of it is just because you have the gift doesn't mean the anointing will be attached to it.
Yeah, and I remember that day because it was hard. I lamented because it's like I wanted you to get back in. I wanted you to start doing it, but there just weren't some things lined up yet. And
Yeah,
I did not want you to expose yourself to a greater attack of the enemy.
yeah,
And so it was like I was trying to protect you in that moment. And I'm like, I remember it. It was like, don't do that just yet. Wait. And I feel like when you talk about the prophecy and
Mhm.
just the pressure that puts on you, I felt like in that moment in my heart that if you would have sent that email, you would have now had a new pressure on
Yeah,
you to perform for people,
yeah,
when in actuality there had to be a rediscovery of you
yeah,
performing for an audience of one. And now looking at, I mean, it was hard to do, but I'm glad I told you, because looking at what God has done, looking at where you are, it was like, and what was beautiful about this is you got it. Like, it wasn't like me and your mom were praying, me and Ange were praying, we were all praying, Gabby was praying, we were all praying. But the day when everything turned, you got revelation,
yeah,
you made the choices, and that was the most powerful thing I could think of, because all I felt was, if I said, Daniel, do this, and you would have done it, then you would have been unhappy
yeah,
and blaming me if
yeah.
it didn't go the way you wanted. And so that was the heart behind it.
And I would say that the boys were the reason I kept going.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I just as much as I knew I felt like my life was over, I also knew that life was beginning with them. And just on one part of the spectrum, I was pessimistic. With them, I was optimistic.
Mm.
And I even feel like now, even with them crying in the background,
Yeah, they're trying to get
I feel
in.
like that's important too, because the epitome of life and just understanding that things happen, you can continue to kind of just roll on. I thought that with them, life would stop. I thought
Yeah.
that having them out of wedlock, having to provide for them, and I really thought that it would quote unquote slow me down.
Mm.
But I love it. I'm kind of now not ashamed of it. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of fitting that crying is going on in the background because this is my life.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've grown to be proud of, because originally I wasn't. We hid the pregnancy for about, oh my goodness, 6 7
Mm.
months.
Yeah.
We knew for a while. We knew the genders. We knew when the babies were coming. We knew what we were gonna get for them before we announced anything.
Wow.
And for me, my wife wanted to, but it was my shame.
Yeah.
Um,
And oh,
and
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, for anybody who may be struggling with this now, that children, yes, they are a weight. They can be a burden, but at the same time, because of them, my life is lighter.
Yeah.
Because of them, I see them and I see me.
Yeah.
And through that, I become more motivated, because it caused me to be more on the straight and narrow than I ever have been. I don't know if you probably remember this, but over those 3 to 4 months of being away, I was going back every weekend.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was a lot. God's
And that
grace.
car was falling apart,
Oh my
man. That
goodness.
car was falling apart. I'm like, you gonna go again this weekend
I
with
didn't
us?
have the
Like,
money for it, but still was
right.
going.
Yep.
But there's a scripture that always keeps me going, even to this day as a parent. Is Philippians chapter 2. I can't remember the exact scripture, but God gives you the power to do what pleases Him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that each time I change a diaper, each time I feed them, I got this realization about 2 weeks ago, and it almost made me teary eyed. I was
Mm.
making breakfast for my youngest son, Jaden, and he just said simply, "Thank you, Daddy." And it made me teary-eyed because I felt that's what God does for us all the time.
Yeah.
So me simply providing something as simple as food for him glorifies God, because that's simply what he does for me as a father. So,
Mm, that's good. That's good. So, man, as we get ready to, land the plane of our this first podcast, and again, we've got three more that we're gonna do on different subjects. And I mean, the next one's gonna be about marriage. The
yeah,
next one we'll talk about marriage, and we're gonna talk more about my life and where I began and how I got here and the different experiences that led to this. But in this particular episode, talking about how Daniel was able to overcome the shame and guilt of being a PK and the boys being, born before he and Jessica were married. The beautiful thing is they are married.
yeah.
They have their third child coming along, and you all have a beautiful, beautiful family.
Thank you.
But there's somebody listening right now that there where you were
Yeah,
a few years ago. Maybe they're not a PK, but they're a Christ follower, and they've made a mistake and they feel the shame and the weight
yeah.
and the guilt and all of that. Daniel, what would you say to that person right now?
Don't run away from it. Feel it.
Hmm.
I spent probably a longer time than I was supposed to, because I ran away from what I feel, the shame, the guilt, the conviction. So after you feel it, focus on what glorifies God. Simple.
Hmm.
That's what really got me back to it. Is yes, having a vision is great, having a passion, having a calling is great, but my first ministry is my family,
Yeah.
my wife, my kids. Those are the things that should be of high importance. So before you get back to piecing your life together, just focus on that area, and I guarantee you that things will start to get back together. That's what happened for me.
That's good. Man, it's still weird hearing you say my wife. I'm still visualizing this infant with all this hair,
Yeah.
all this hair. I wish I had a picture so I could show everybody because it's just adorable. But man, this was great. Thank you, and I love doing this with you. I just love hanging out with you. We just hanging out,
Yeah.
and
These are our phone calls. We
yeah, these
spend 30
are these.
minutes on the phone.
We're literally letting you all in on our phone call.
Literally.
But man, we want to take a moment and just say, everybody, thank you for joining us. If this blessed you, share it with a friend, share it with the family member, whoever you feel like this could bless. But we thank you for sharing your time with us on this first episode, and we'll be back with episode 2, and it's gonna be a banger each one. We simply believe that we will help you get unstuck with every episode. And so thank you for tonight. God bless you. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.